Hello and welcome to the Mighty Oak Show. Glad to have you with us today. And as you can tell, we're doing the entire show remote because the entire world is doing everything remote right now. So it looks like everybody's shut down. It's the craziest thing. But if you want a cup of coffee, now's the time to go get it. There's no one in line. It's easy to drive. So there's some good on the other side of this. But I know there are folks who are stuck at home, and this whole thing has not had a huge impact on them. But for some of you, it really has had an impact. And certainly, I hope you're doing well and pushing through that, and trust that we'll get through this quickly and be able to move on. One of the things we'd like to talk about here often is personal resiliency and relationship resiliency and what that looks like. And I hope that wherever you are in this whole thing that we're dealing with as a nation and really as a world globally, that you'll find some encouragement here, and that's our purpose. So excited about today's show. Before we get to that, though, if you're watching on YouTube and have not yet subscribed, please do that. Hit the notification bell. That lets you know when more content comes online. And we are constantly putting content on our YouTube channel. And for those of you that are listening either to the podcast or over at our partners at Mojo50, so glad you're listening. Take some time when you get a chance, jump over to YouTube and check us out there. And we would love to share that content with you as well. Our show today, super stoked about. I've been looking forward to this. We are speaking to Joe Collins. Joe is running for Congress in California's 43rd district. I'll let him talk about that district a little bit. But we met a few weeks ago, actually, both of us getting ready to go on another show on One American News. And so we had the opportunity to meet there. And Joe is a Navy veteran and now serving his community, continues to serve and looking to serve our nation, and really excited about it. Joe, thank you so much in the midst of everything that's going on to take some time to be with us. Really, really glad to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with you today on your show. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I was telling you a minute ago, love to have veterans on who are serving and continue to serve. I think, when you're young, a lot of people go into the military for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of that, to see folks who have served in the military and continue to serve really is something that we need to talk more about. I think a lot of veterans, they do their thing and then they get out and they feel like for the rest of their life they did their part, and so they're not
Mm-hmm.
serving. So thank you for what you're doing. Let's start at the beginning if we can. You grew up in South Los Angeles,
I did.
A place that a lot of us have heard about, and most of us have not wanted to spend time in. So talk about growing up there and kind of your family dynamic and how you found yourself in the military.
I mean, growing up in South, so I'm from South Central Los Angeles, and grew up in 104th and Normandy. And it's rough. It's a place that a lot of young Black men don't make it out, unfortunately. We don't have a lot of opportunities. We have poor education, school system. We have terrible leadership in a legislative department. And so you see people struggling, trying to do things that they feel like they have to do in order to make ends meet, whether it's gang banging, robbing, and stealing other people, or trying to make it out the ghettos through sports, athletics or rapping or what have you. So we ended up moving to Texas, right outside of Dallas, to a small town because our house was shot up in a drive-by, and my mother didn't like that. It was pretty dangerous. We were at church at the time, and I think had we been at home, then me and my sisters, we seriously would have been shot. So she moved us out to Texas, and when I graduated high school in 2003, I joined the Navy in 2004. And then I served 13 and a half years in the U.S. Navy. But definitely growing up in South Los Angeles is rough for anybody.
What was that move to Dallas like for you guys? You were pretty young when that happened. I can imagine the transition from South Los Angeles to Texas. I don't know if you bought a pair of cowboy boots before you got there or after. Or what's the transition like that look like for your family?
We went from the inner cities to rural country, and so the transition, it was a shocker. You don't have a lot of people that live around you. When it comes to the accent, when it comes to the dynamics, going from a place where everyone are Democrats to a place where the majority of people are Republican.
Yeah.
The school system is different. The type of hobbies that you have to get involved in are different as well. But it was definitely a shocker moving from California to Texas, plus not having a lot of family around and everything too. So
what a it speaks volumes about your family and your parents
Mhm.
to I'm sure they had to make a sacrifice to do that, but to get you and your siblings in a place where you could be safe and learn and grow. Um, that's the right thing. That's what parenting looks like, right?
Supposed to, yeah. I think it's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah, a
thing.
lot of people are missing that. So how did you go from that into the Navy? And I was in the Marine Corps, so I'm not going to make fun of you for having gone into the Navy. I mean, I want to, and you have no idea, but I'm not going to because I
You
respect you as a person.
go for it. I've heard all the Navy jokes, the Army jokes, the Marine jokes. I don't make them myself because I feel like people who join the Army and the Marine Corps are a lot braver, especially when you look at the mission of the Army and the mission of the Marine Corps. I don't think that's something that I would personally be able to do. But joining the Navy, I never had any type of vision to go into the military, right? So whenever I had graduated high school, I knew, because my mom was a school teacher and my dad, my stepdad was an auto mechanic, and he served in a National Guard, or he served in the Army. Um, we didn't have a lot of money, and so I wanted to choose a path that didn't take a lot away from my mother, and my older sister, my younger sister, because I had a younger sister that was going through high school whenever I graduated, and my older sister was going through college. And so being a middle child, you kind of stuck in between, especially when you're a guy. It's like, okay, so what do you do? Do you go to college and put that extra burden on your parents, or
Correct.
do you try to do something else? And so I tried college. I went to junior college after high school, and it wasn't working out for me. So I joined the Navy. Yeah, yeah.
And I joke. I think it's a funny thing. I've been in places where I spoke at conferences or something like that. We speak in Air Force conferences a lot in different places, different bases, and it's fun to make fun of people who are serving or have served because everybody laughs, right? So
Yeah.
we go back and forth on that. But then I've been like in a church where I'm speaking, and I'll make fun of the veterans in the audience, and it's not received as well. Everybody's like, "How in the world could you make fun of a veteran?" Um, I'm thankful for everybody who served, and I
Yeah,
really believe that service is a high calling and service to your country. And one of the things
absolutely.
about all military service is you don't know where that's going to take you. You have no idea,
It's true.
where you're going to end up. I've talked to guys who went into the infantry and the Marine Corps who had really, kind of low key, almost boring, times during their enlistment, whether it was one enlistment or two, and guys who enlisted in the Navy and ended up, guarding something and in firefights their entire deployment. Like, how in the world did I end up here?
Exactly.
So super thankful for the service. I do think that a lot of people misunderstand why people go into the military.
Mhm.
And you said that there are so many different reasons. This is even brought up from time to time, kind of in the political sphere.
Uh-huh.
Well, the only people who go into the military are those who have no other options or can't do
Exactly.
anything else, or whatever. And that's just absolutely not the case. I've met some of the most intelligent people I've ever known in my life in the military.
Yeah.
Other folks who, like you would say, I just didn't fit over there, and I fit in the military, and that made sense.
Hmm.
Um, can you speak to that for a minute? Just the type of people that are in the military, the type of people that are serving our country, the people who are out there right now. We're so overwhelmed with this thing that's going on. We've forgotten that every day there are people in Iraq, Afghanistan, around the world
Hmm.
on ships, in places that none of us know about, that are serving to protect us right now. Talk about those people.
Well, I'll tell you this. I was a recruiter, and I ran a number one recruiting station in Dallas. And we've put tons of people in the military, and it's one of the highlights of my career, being able to jumpstart the careers of young people, or even giving people who have the desire to serve our country an opportunity to do so. And so, like you said, we have a lot of intelligent people that join the military, not because it's a second option, but they join the military because they actually love the country. They want to serve the
Yeah.
country. They want to do something good. We have a lot of great careers in the military, regardless if you're overseas in a firefighter or on a ship in the middle of the ocean. The career opportunities are there, and we have to thank the people who made the sacrifice to serve our countries. And I think even when you make the transition out of the military, we have a lot of people who don't know that they're entitled to certain benefits. We still have World War II veterans who are in their 90s still trying to get benefits or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think for the public sphere, um, we have to look at the sacrifices that people who served in the military makes. They have to leave home When they get deployed, they leave their families. They do these things so people in America can live the life that they do. They can celebrate the holidays. They can use their freedom of speech, use their freedom of expression. They can do things that we in the military cannot do on a regular basis. And so these things have to be appreciated, because if it was not for our military and our service members, who serve this country, we can be like a country like Iran or China, who are constantly being oppressed 24/7 just for freedom of religion or freedom of speech. And not something that we are able to explore and celebrate here in America, our personal freedoms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. We definitely take these things for granted until we need them, right? But we take for granted the freedom that we have and the people that are willing to kind of put it all on line to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
When you transitioned out of the military, one of the conversations we have often here is about transition, is about that transition out of the military. My opinion, having worked with thousands of veterans and having had this conversation many, many times, is that for a lot of folks who transition out of the military, it's the transition that is harmful to them,
Yep.
not necessarily the trauma that they endured while serving in the military or something like that. We talk about combat trauma a lot, and through our programs we deal with combat trauma or trauma because of military service. There are a lot of different types. Even in law enforcement and the first responder community, we talk about those things. But I think sometimes the struggles people are having relationally, or with the abuse of medications and those things, all the stuff that we look at, the struggles that veterans have on the other side of their service, often is because of the transition, maybe even the loss of identity through the process of that transition.
Mm-hmm.
You serve 13 and a half years in the Navy. That becomes who you are in a sense.
Absolutely.
You wear the uniform, you identify with the uniform, then you transition out. I don't know if you had any of those struggles personally, but is that something that you've seen? And what advice would you give to someone who's going through that period of transition, who has transitioned and they're trying to figure out what to do next? You obviously are laser focused on what you're doing next, but what does that look like? How does that happen? How do you go from that to, being someone who's running for Congress, arguably in one of the most difficult districts in America right now? Maybe talk about the transition a little bit and help those who are dealing with that or trying to figure that out.
Yeah, like you said, the transition period from military to civilian life is the hardest thing in the world. It's almost as hard as going into combat and not knowing if you're going to return home.
Sure.
And like you said, the reason why is I don't think a lot of people understand. Like when you're in the military, you spend your whole adult life in the military, right? So your whole manhood or your whole womanhood, that whole adult period, you spent in the military, and so the military becomes who you are. I think that whenever we go into the service, they give us 8 weeks or 12 weeks to be able to get acclimated to military life and get that transition, and then on the way out, you get 1 week of
right.
these classes where they try to teach you how to be a civilian, and it's not enough.
Right.
I know from my personal story, when I exited the military during my transition, I was homeless. Slept in my truck, slept at the pier, because the savings, it doesn't last a long time. And so I did spend a period of time being homeless. And I went to Maxine Waters' office a lot, and she's supposed to be the representative. So I'm like, okay, so I need help to speed up the benefits. I need help to figure out this transition. I need help to get a job. I need help for all of these things that basic people should get it and are getting. And so whenever I did get my benefits, no thanks to Maxine Waters, it was pure me going to the VA hospital, or me making phone calls with people, finding out what it is I'm supposed to do. I start to look around and I noticed that we have a huge homeless veteran problem here in Los Angeles. We have it huge across the United States. And, what I would tell people is, don't give up just because someone tells you no, or just because you can't find an avenue. Continue to press, continue to go to the VA, look for other avenues or other sources of information that you can use in order to help you obtain your benefits, because you do deserve it. Also, don't be afraid to talk to people about the issues that you're having, whether it's mental issues, whether it's medication, or whether it's drugs or alcohol abuse, or physical abuse, you have to let someone know that, you're having problems so they can get you the help that you need. I know for myself, having a lot of pride and not wanting to tell people like, I have these issues going on was a really big thing for me. And so as soon as I was able to shed that pride and actually start talking to people like, look, I have these issues. I need help with this. I need help with that. You start to get a lot more accomplished.
How'd you end up back in Los Angeles? How did you not end up back out in Dallas or in Texas?
Well, the majority of my family is here in Los Angeles. I tried to go back to Dallas, but it didn't feel like home. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and I knew when I got out the military, I wanted to continue to serve my country. I wanted to continue to in a legislative branch or somewhere in government, continue to service. And so, what better place to serve than the place where you grew up, especially knowing that the city is still underserved, still underrepresented. We still have huge problems when it comes to loss of jobs, loss of housing, high taxes, poor representation. People are being lied to on a daily basis about basic things that should be taken care of in the communities. And so I wanted to come back home. I wanted to run for a seat in a community that I grew up.
Yeah. How did you go from being homeless to having some stability and being able to pursue what you're pursuing now?
Yeah. So when my VA benefits kicked in, I got back pay from the time I got the military until the summertime, and then I was able to get a place. I was able to get a car, and then I was like, you know what? I don't want anybody else to have to go through the same thing. And so I'm gonna go run against Maxine Waters because she's letting a lot of veterans down.
Who taught you to think this way? This is something interesting to me because, um, again, a lot of veterans are doing some amazing things. Some of the largest companies in the country are run by veterans.
Mhm.
A lot of veterans have figured out how to leverage what they had to leverage it into something else.
Uh,
Um, who taught you, or at what point in your life did you say, I need to take care not only of myself, but of other people? I need to continue to serve and continue to give back. Why didn't you take your benefits and, go blow it on something stupid that you feel bad about?
yeah.
Where did you learn that?
I've always had a lot of good mentors in the military. And so gaining mentors, they always teach you to give back to where you come from, give back to your community, give back to the military, give back to the younger generation of servicemen. And so it's always been something that I felt I had an obligation to do. I joined the military, and I gained a real love for this country, and then it's service to this country, right? When you bring new people into the military, it's service to the newer generation of service members. So when you get out the military and you're still young, you still have the ability to make a change, make a difference. Is giving back to your community, giving back to your country, and constantly figuring out ways to do that. Just like other veterans, the Mighty Oaks Foundation, the Honor Foundation, the veterans who build businesses and hire other veterans, veterans who go into law enforcement, veterans who are first responders, veterans that go into the FBI, veterans that get into
Yep.
federal service work. And so we all have this thing to where we have to continue to give back until we have nothing left to give.
Do you feel like veterans generally have an obligation to give back?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's my personal feeling. I feel like, if you had enough, go off into the sunset because you deserve it. But we do need veterans to continue to serve our country,
Yeah.
to continue to get in office, to continue to get in politics, continue to get in to law enforcement and areas of such. So, I
Yeah.
would encourage every veteran, please continue to serve because we need your help.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest areas we need veterans to serve is in politics. And we all
Absolutely.
complain about politicians and politics and
Mhm.
and all the things that are going wrong. What's crazy, and I make this point when I have the opportunity to teach in our programs, and I know this is something we talk about often, is we look at the veteran population in the United States. It's about 18 million veterans. Active duty with enlisted component or with reserve components rather, and National Guard and that, over 2 million folks who are serving. So
Mhm.
we have a huge population of people who have learned how to endure hardship, learned how to operate within a system, learned how to lead others. Um, in the greatest probably leadership school in the world, the United States military. And then so many of those transition out of the military and just either receive benefits or work a job and say, I've done my part, when we have a nation that is screaming for leaders. And I
Exactly.
think this is something that it drives me nuts. What we need is leadership. And from the largest pool of leaders in the United States, we can't find leaders. We don't have more veterans serving in politics. And it's so, so important that we're represented. And I appreciate that you're doing it. And it's not an easy path, but we need veterans to serve in our system.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do. I think it's crazy that the people who we have running our country right now are a bunch of attorneys who
Right.
have never had to sacrifice anything except for money to get a degree. They don't have any personal sacrifices to this country. They have no vested interest in seeing, our country move forward in a way that's beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
And with veterans, we have served our country. We have an interest in ensuring the people of our country are served, and we can move forward in a way that's best for the people.
Yeah.
So yes, we do need more veterans serving in our country, especially in politics.
One of the other kind of side conversations about this that it just always drives me nuts is probably, arguably the one job of politicians in the United States at a national level is to protect the citizens of the United States, right? I mean, there are a lot of ways
Yeah.
we could do that, a lot of policies we talk about, but if you boil it all down, there's one job. The one job is to protect the citizens. And most of the people writing policy to protect citizens have no idea what that looks like. They've never
Absolutely.
experienced it. And I think that really is why we're struggling so much in so many
Yeah.
areas. Even right now, that's one of the reasons we're struggling.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't think we should be like, we have to earn our keep, you know. And right now, especially on the Democratic side, with the newer legislators, it's just like, no, free, 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 free,
Right.
free, 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 free this, free that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so whenever you give something to someone with no cost, it diminishes the value in that thing. And it gives people a sense of entitlement, and it gives people this sense, well, we don't have to work because we're supposed to get this because of who we think we are. And it's just like, no, you have to work for what you want. And I think that a lot of people are losing that concept of working for what you deserve because they want something for free.
Yeah, it's sad even to see conservatives kind of buy into some of that. I saw I saw a picture the other day as a meme, and if nothing else has come out of our current lockdown, it's a lot of great memes have come out of it. So people are bored, they're at home, that's what they're doing. But it was someone sitting on the couch in a bathrobe. They said, "I'm just sitting here. I'm out of work. I'm waiting for the government to give me a check. I feel like a Democrat for the first time in my life." Right? It's
Yeah.
kind of a joke, but that's the culture that a lot of people are coming up in, and
Hmm.
yeah, someone needs to stand up and say there's a better way.
Yeah.
So, so talk about your district. You have a little bit, but talk about your district.
Yeah.
Um, so many challenges there, to include the person that you're running against.
Yeah.
Maxine Waters. Um, I won't give my opinion about Maxine Waters. I have one, and if anyone wants to ask, I'm happy to give it, but not right now. But she's entrenched. She seems to be very popular. Uh, but in addition to that, that's who you're running against. So many problems in the district that you're seeking to represent. Can you talk about that a little bit? Talk about her. Talk about even how you've been received by the
Uh,
folks who are in your district.
Yeah, I mean, Maxine Waters, she is a beast of no nation, to
Hmm.
say the least. But she's been in a district for well over 30 years, and our district is terrible. I mean, it's one of the poorest districts, and they seem to redistrict to keep her in power. And every district that she's been redistricted from has, felt the leadership of Maxine Waters, and it's not in a good way.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
when we look at the homelessness in California, we look at the job loss, even small things such as the graduation rate from high school, 77%, which means what, 1 in 3 people are graduated from high school. When you look at the college graduation rate, 22%, which means 1 in 4 people are going to graduate from
Mhm.
college. The no jobs, People can't even keep their houses. We have taxes that eat away at the small bit of wealth that people are trying to get. I mean, we're in terrible shape. And Maxine Waters roars the most racist rhetoric I have ever seen in my entire life. And you would think that, you know, people would start to understand that she's been preaching the same garbage for well over 20 years and it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked then, and it's definitely not working now. And, you know, there has to be some type of new leadership to tell people, okay, we have to put this race rhetoric aside and create a baseline for us to be able to move forward from, you know, learning from the past. And, you know, when I start to talk to people about this, you know, they're very interested, which is why we, you know, we came in second place in our primary election. But getting more people out to vote, getting more people to understand that Maxine Waters is a leech. You know, she doesn't live in a district. She's made a tremendous amount of wealth from pandering to race rhetoric and the hatred that she does. And you know, a lot of people think that it's time for a change, but they're voting for Maxine because they know her, not necessarily because what she can do for them. I've not met one person yet that honestly likes Maxine Waters.
How does she stay in office there?
People vote for her because they know her. Pure name ID. Because if I walk around a district and I ask, what has she done for you? You know, people can't even name anything that she's done in the last year, you know, nevertheless, the last 15 years. So it's purely based on name ID from the Black community.
What would you like to what would you like to see done there? I know you know you would do the best you could if you became
Mhm.
the person who represents that district. Um, what are the things that you'd like to see happen? Things that you know would really improve that community?
What I would like to see is an increase in value in the district. I would like to get rid of the high amount of taxes. I would like to rebuild the infrastructure to support small businesses and housing. I would like to bring opportunities to support the small businesses in the area. Um, I would like to improve our education system, improve the relationship between the law enforcement and the communities, and actually start to develop and implement programs to teach people how to build and grow wealth.
How do you do all of that? And I mean, that's the challenge. How do you? I know it's a slow process. It's a
Mhm.
it's probably a generational process. But
Yeah.
how do you get the ball rolling on doing those things?
Well, we start now. We definitely start now. I have already a lot of programs that we are putting together and implementing into the city that will teach people how to build and grow wealth, how to plan using estates and trust. We have a program that we've started to put into high schools that is sponsored by NASA and the Hidden Pioneers to give our youth a pathway to a career through NASA. We have an entrepreneurship program that we got approved by CTE that we're putting into the schools right now. We're developing a plan to be able to utilize the opportunity zones that the president has signed into law so we can bring more quality businesses that will give quality jobs to people who live in the district. We are working with the aerospace industry. We have a huge aerospace industry in Los Angeles. So we're working with them in order to provide a pipeline for people to be able to utilize the aerospace industry to get quality jobs. And this is where it starts. And we slowly start to remove this race rhetoric and get rid of the people who have been entrenched in politics in this district for a very long time, get rid of them completely. They have to go. It's time for them to retire anyway. I mean, Maxine Waters is 81 years old. You know, if anything, she's definitely out of touch. She doesn't listen to anyone. And for some reason, she feels like the leadership style that she has is very effective, and it's not.
How do you address kind of the character issues of the people who live in a district like this one? And by that I mean people who have been raised on kind of the survival instinct, and you attach yourself to a gang and take what you want,
Mm,
and a lot of that is it's just it's environmental. It's the environment that those folks have been raised in. They need to see a better way. They need to be shown a better way.
mhm.
How do you deal with that? I think that kind of transcends programs and other things. How do you deal with helping the individuals who live there understand that they can be more, that there is more, that there's a purpose for their lives and they can accomplish?
Yeah. The biggest thing that we have to do is we have to be able to provide opportunity. And that's the main reason why people join gangs. You know, there's no opportunities here in South LA. So we have to be able to provide opportunities and show people, okay, look, this is what we're doing. Okay, we're going to provide you these opportunities, but this is what we need you to do. You have to get away from the gangs. You have to get away from this norm, this social norm that everything that's good is not for you, because that's what they preach. You know, you can't be rich because you're not white or you're not a Republican. You can't take advantage of the programs that the president is implementing because you're not a business owner, you're not rich, or you're not this, or you're not that. And they peddle this information to subconsciously make people believe that, okay, nothing good is for me. I have to be poor, I have to rely on the government to help me. And so we have to move that way of thinking into a more independent way of thinking, along the lines of, okay, so maybe we are not being able to take advantage of the programs right now, but what do we have to do in order to put ourselves in a position to be able to benefit from things that are going on nationwide that are good?
What is the purpose? I think it's control, but why is the race issue the one that, that's the drum that politicians like to beat, not just in Los Angeles but across the country, and it
Yeah.
seems to have gotten worse in the last several years, not better, which is mind-boggling to me.
Mhm.
Uh, why is that the conversation? Why do they keep projecting that conversation on the rest of us?
Well, it started back when it started back whenever, you know, the Democrats and Republicans were fighting over slavery, right? And then they passed the bill, the what was it, the Civil Rights Bill,
Hmm.
and you know they passed a Civil Rights Bill to keep Black people voting for Democrats, and so they found out that if you start to give people free things all the time or tell them we're going to do this for you, we're going to give you the world, the moon, and outer space, and people buy into that,
Right.
and they keep buying into the same thing over and over and over again. And when these people get in office, they say, oh well, we can't do it, and they make up an excuse to why we can't even get, you know, fresh water into our houses, you know. And so they've been betting on the continued promises with the lack of action in order to keep people voting, right? And so it all becomes a game of who can sound the best to different races in order to get that vote.
Yeah. It's a tragic thing, and I probably live a disconnected life. I don't know, but in my life, living in Southern California, and I don't live in a strongly one minority or one group community. It's a pretty diverse community that I live in, and it just does not seem to be the issue at all where I live.
Mhm.
But I know it is in other places. I'm not downplaying that, but I just don't think it's the issue that we're being told that it is,
Yeah,
and it's pitting people against each other that otherwise wouldn't be against each other.
absolutely.
It's the craziest thing. Um, when you get elected, because you will, I'm confident that you will, and man, you have all my support. Um, when you get elected, what will your first priorities be? As soon as you can, what are the things you're going to put your hand to?
My first priority, once I get elected, is bringing as many quality jobs back to South LA as I can. Because when you go around Los Angeles and you ask people, what is your biggest issue? And this is from homeless people to homeowners, and it's money. We have no money to take care of our kids. We have no money to buy a house. We have no money for this or that. And you know, I'm not a fan of giving anything for free except for a quality job. And so my thought process, if I can bring as many quality jobs back to South LA to curb that money situation, we would reduce the number of homeless population and we'll increase the value in the lives of the people who live in the district.
Yeah, that's awesome. How does your family feel about what you're doing right now?
You know what? They're very supportive. They've
Yeah,
always been supportive. And I think they've kind of figured out from when I jumped up and left to go to the military that service to this country was going to be my life. And so
yeah,
they've coped with the fact, even when I transitioned from being a Democrat to Republican, they didn't like it at first, but you know, it's been a blessing, and they've come around, and you know, they don't necessarily identify as Democrat or Republican, but now they see they need to vote for people
yeah.
who have a vested interest in improving their quality of life.
That's so important. I believe that one of the problems we've had, in our political system, pitting Democrats against Republicans
Mhm.
is well, one, people are entrenched in their party and they just don't care what
Yeah.
happens, right? So even though the party has probably moved away from them, that's who they are, and it'll always be that. So they just stick to that. The other thing is just the inability of people in both parties to communicate clearly
Exactly.
what they believe, why they believe it, and how it's helpful for the people that they represent. And you're super articulate. I really appreciate that about you because it's so important. Because this should transcend party. I know we've been divided into parties,
Mm-hmm.
but so much of this should transcend parties. It's a question of, how do you feel about the economics of a nation and the economics of a community and then a family? How do
Mm-hmm.
you feel about civil liberties? That should not be a Democrat or Republican question or a
Absolutely.
race issue, right?
Yeah.
And to articulate that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you are able to do that. I hope that you're able to do that throughout your district. The city of Los Angeles is not known for loving conservatives. um, what's the tone or the mood in the city of Los Angeles? Not only about your running for office, but for others who would be conservative, trying to make these changes that need to be made.
Mhm. Well, being conservative in California in itself is
Yeah,
difficult.
right.
And you see a lot of people, they want to be conservative, or they want to switch parties. And because Republicans in California are so oppressed and our voices are so silenced by the media and by this Democratic conglomerate that we have, people are actually afraid to come out and say they support the president, or they're afraid to come out and say that they are Republican. And I feel that the more of us come out as being conservative, the more people will be comfortable with coming out and saying that they're conservative as well. I know I'm pretty bold about being a Republican, regardless of where I'm at, whether it's in Washington, D.C. or
Yeah,
South Central LA, because, it really doesn't bother me to tell people I'm a Republican, I'm proud, I support the president, and, that's just how it is. But I know a lot of people are not that bold. But I think we need to get there. We need to have this unapologetic, unafraid boldness of who we are.
yeah. How did you transition from being a Democrat, I assume raised that way, to
Uh-huh.
being where you are now? You'd say, I support the president and I'm a Republican, I'm conservative. How do you make that transition?
Through the military, to be honest with you. I was 18 years old, my first time voting, and my mentors would tell me, even my superiors, they'll say, you don't vote because you're a Democrat, you don't vote because you're a Republican. What you need to do is you need to go do the research on all the parties and find out which party best aligned with what what you stand for, and then do the research on the people who you're going to vote for and find out if they're going to align with what you stand for, and that's how you vote. And so doing the research, I would see where the Republican Party started, see where they came from, see the history of the Democratic Party, and that was the tipping point for me being a Republican. But I vote for people who I identify with, regardless of the party preference. I feel like political party preference is your own opinion. It's your own personal belief, just like a religion. And people are free to explore that, and you can vote for people who you like, regardless of if they fit your party preference.
That's right. Do you feel like there is a revival or resurgence of conservatism in the United States?
I kind of do. I kind of do. I think the President Trump make people proud to be a Republican because we get to take that political correctness out of politics and be free to express
He's
ourselves.
not politically correct most of the time. He doesn't seem to care too much about that.
Not even close. Not even close, which is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting time to be alive, and with everything going on in our world right now, um, it's hard to know which way is up sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thankful for the leadership that we do have. People that want to support you, financially,
Mm-hmm.
or just follow what you're doing and get behind you. How do they do that? Where's the best place to follow along? And what do you need from people? Maybe that's a question I could ask as well. What do you need?
Support. Definitely support is always good. Financial support is always good. My website is joecollinsforcongress.com, and you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Collins for Congress 43. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Joe Collins 43rd. But definitely support. If it's not me, support the conservatives in your cities, in your states. That will definitely help the president. It will definitely help our our country, and it would definitely help your cities and states.
So I should have asked this question before I asked that question, but that reminded me of the question I should have asked. How does you getting elected in South Central Los Angeles help the rest of us who don't live there?
That's a really good question. The way it would help you is let's talk about the $2 trillion bill that just got passed. Trying to pass that bill was so difficult because people want to argue back and forth about what they feel like is best, and cram in money for programs that are not needed. Electing me into office or supporting me to get in office will make bills that are necessary for people to continue to survive through times like this possible.
Yeah.
And so on a public policy level, legislative level, getting rid of people who constantly goes against the grain or constantly entices violence and hatred is paramount. And so that's how getting me elected, getting other people running for office elected is going to benefit every single city and every single state in the United States.
Yeah, that's awesome. Website one more time.
JoeCollinsForCongress.com. It's all spelled out.
Awesome. We'll put it as a link to the show as well. Joe, thank you so much. Man, people complain constantly about the fact that we don't have good politicians. You're someone we need to get behind, and I encourage everyone who's watching to get behind you. This is not a political show. For those who watch this show, we don't, often talk politics. However, we do talk about giving back to our community, and we talk about leadership, and we talk about taking what you've learned in the military and leveraging that for the good of, the rest of the community, the rest of the country. And Joe, you're doing that. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity to talk again soon.
Thank you. Definitely. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Awesome. For those of you that are watching, again, a different format for us today. Everything's virtual, but thank you for watching, and hope that you're doing well. Please leave questions, comments, anything you have to say in the comment section. We'd love to get that from you. If you have not yet subscribe. If you haven't hit the notification bell, that lets you know when more content comes online. And I would encourage all of you as we leave to check out Joe Collins for Congress. Check that out. Go and support however you can. And if you don't live in the district, but you know someone who does, get them behind him as well. We really need for him to be the next representative of that district in the state of California. So thank you, and we'll talk to you next time. What a great conversation with Joe Collins. Very, very thankful for him and for people like him. So much to his story, and I think that his is the type of story that we could talk about probably for several hours. But a guy who was raised in South Central Los Angeles, whose family was there, a lot of his family still is there, was moved away by parents who wanted to get him in a better environment, him and his sisters, get them in a better environment where they could, be safe and they could learn and they could grow. If that's all we knew about him and his story and his family, that's a great story. So many people get stuck where they are. They get stuck whether it's in environmentally, it's the city that they live in, or it's the family situation that they're in, or it's the economic situation that they're in. Whatever the case, they get stuck there. They kind of throw their hands up and say, well, I guess this is all there is. But Joe's family made a decision to get out of a bad situation and move to a better situation. And then he, taking from that and from, again, he talked about the mentors in his life, taking from that and understanding that he needed to be responsible for himself. What a great lesson, personal responsibility. And it's always interesting to me when you see someone who is conservative, they're fiscally conservative, they're socially conservative from a political or policy standpoint, they're conservative. They also fundamentally believe in personal responsibility. And again, as you hear Joe tell his story, that's exactly what he has kind of lived and has done throughout the course of his life, is taking responsibility for himself, taking responsibility for his situation, looking at his parents and looking at his siblings and understanding, I can't put my burden, even of college and those kind of things, on them. I'm going to have to be responsible for myself. And he did that and went into the military and served honorably his country. I joke about military service and types of service.
But I'm thankful for the men and women from all over the spectrum, nationally. We look at every situation, every circumstance, good, bad, and otherwise. People come into the military and serve their country, and I'm thankful that they do, and appreciate Joe for that. But then transitioning out of the military, and this is what a challenge this is for so many folks. And if you are someone who's gone through this, you know that it's extremely difficult. Joe said this, sometimes transitioning out of the military can be more difficult than even a combat deployment and some of the other things that are dealt with in the context of military service. And that has certainly been my experience. It was my experience personally, and it's been my experience working with other folks, that transition and how difficult it is. But Joe transitioning out of the military, and just service is how he's wired, service is what he does. So looking for other opportunities to continue to serve his country, and he's settled on a hard one, running as a conservative, running as a Republican in the state of California, not only in the state of California, but in the 43rd District in South Central Los Angeles, running against someone who is so strongly entrenched, they're going to be hard to get rid of or hard to move on, Maxine Waters. But he's done it. He said, I want to serve. I want to serve the community that I was raised in. I want to serve the community that a lot of my family currently lives in, and I'm going to do my best to continue to serve. And again, taking that personal responsibility along with him. And I love it. He said, I don't believe in giving away things and giving away money, but I do believe in giving opportunity and creating jobs and giving people an opportunity to work and earn and grow. And what a wonderful, wonderful perspective. Personal responsibility in his own life, having seen some of that modeled in the life of his family, the lives of his family, the actions of his family, having mentors who speak to that, and then taking that back to a community that so desperately needs to hear the message of personal responsibility. I've said this many, many times, and I mentioned this even in the interview. It's a shame to me that we have a country with 18 million veterans, 2.5 million folks who are currently serving in the United States military, men and women who have been taught how to lead, taught how to endure hardship, many of whom have endured tremendous hardship through their service to our country. We have folks who have everything they need to really lead and carry us forward, and yet the vast majority of them will step back and hopefully take care of their families and work jobs and do those things, and those are wonderful things. But they're not stepping into the realm of public leadership, and service and leadership go hand in hand. We're not talking about people who are leveraging something that they've done for power. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people who know how to lead, who can see things clearly, who understand things well, and can really help to carry us forward in that regard. And I'm thankful for people like Joe Collins. I'm thankful for others who are doing that. And I'd really issue the call to others who have served. Get involved in maybe it's not national politics, maybe it's your community. Get involved in what's happening in your community and find places to serve. Find places not just to give back. That sounds very altruistic, to give back, but to lead, to use what you've learned and the perspectives that you've gained, and to lead. I love that Joe talked about mentors, how important mentors are. Man, we all need mentors in our lives. If you don't have someone who's speaking into your life, you need to find that person. Speaking truth, you need to find that person. But then you need to be that person. And I've heard this said, you've become a leader when instead of asking people to pour into you, you're finding people in whom you can pour into. I think leaders need both. We need people to mentor us as well. But we need to grow to the point where we're not as concerned about who's going to pour into me, who's going to mentor me, as we are, who can I mentor? Who can I leverage my gifts, my talents, my opportunities, my abilities? Who can I leverage that to help? And again, what a great example. Someone like Joe, whose family moved him out of South Central Los Angeles. Again, you may have never even been to California, but you've heard of South Central Los Angeles, and not for all the good that happens there. Very, very difficult place to live. A lot of hardship in that community. You've heard about that. He moved away had the opportunity to really go anywhere that he wanted to. He went right back there because he wanted to serve, wanted to mentor, and wanted to encourage the folks in that community. What a tremendous, tremendous example. And again, I said this earlier, I'll say it again. This is not a show where we typically endorse politicians and do those kind of things. But we need to get behind men and women who are leveraging what they've learned, what they've gained in their service to our country, who are leveraging that now for their communities. And this is not about, D's or R's. This is not about a lot of the policy stuff. Although, I'm sure you have opinions on that, just as I do. This is more about supporting someone who really wants to give back to their community and wants to do right by the people in the community that he is from. And very, very thankful for him. Go and check out his website, learn more about him, and I would encourage you to support in any way that you can. As he mentioned, and this is kind of the last question that I asked him, supporting him here in Los Angeles is a benefit to you wherever you live in the country. We need voices like his, not just in the communities of the city of Los Angeles, but also in Congress. We need, at a national level, we need folks just like him who have served, who speak clearly, who understand, who can represent those who are struggling, and in so doing, represent the rest of us. Very, very thankful for him. And I hope that you'll check out his website and do your best to support him and the cause there. For those of you that are listening and watching, again, I just want to say thank you. It is because of you and because of support from folks just like you that we're able to do a show like this one. We're in a crazy time, you know that. The Mighty Oaks Foundation, the organization that produces this show, and the organization that really I represent, we do our best over the course of every year to support the men and women who have served and are serving us, both in the military and in the first responder community. That's what we do. We have programs across the country where we will bring men and women to a facility, and we pay to get them there. We will then do our best to help them over the course of the week to get to a place where they can deal with whatever trauma they've dealt with in their life and go home and rebuild relationships and reconnect if that's necessary, but live the life really they were created to live. That's what we do, and several hundred folks a year will go through that program. In addition, we travel the country and speak to folks in conferences and other settings. All told, tens of thousands of people a year our team has the opportunity to influence in those communities. And right now, things are different. You know that. A lot is shut down. The facilities that we use, by and large, have been put on hold. We're adjusting, and we're doing a lot of stuff virtually. We're making phone calls. We're connecting with people, and the work continues to go on. And if anything, it's crazy. You'd think when people talk about shutdown, things would slow down. It seems like we're working more around here than we did even before, and it's all happening right here. It's all localized, but we're reaching the nation and those men and women who serve us across the nation through the various platforms that you guys are probably using in your own work. And so if you support the Mighty Oaks Foundation, thank you for doing that. Again, the work continues to go on, and we continue to fund all of this. I'm thankful that we have the opportunity to get folks into our programs. We pay for that. We pay for travel if it's needed, and all that goes along with that. And we're able to do that because of men and women who support us financially. And I would encourage you, if you've listened to this show, maybe this is the first time you've seen this show, go and check us out. Look at our website, mightyoaksprograms.org, mightyoaksprograms.org. If you know someone who needs to attend a program like ours, there's a place that you can apply right there, and we'd love to have you apply. We'll get back to you. If you just want to find out more about us or even ways that you can support us, you can find that out on our website as well. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you have not yet, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and you'll be able to keep touch of us and keep track of what we're doing. And we would love to continue to produce this content for you. Share it out, and I hope it's a help and encouragement to you. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you next time.